Welcome in, folks, for another episode of What's Bruin, the first episode after the official start of training camp. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined by the one and only Gayle. Gayle, it's time.
Yeah.
Season's underway. Are you excited?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Awesome. How was your training camp day?
Well, I actually got to watch both press conferences live, so that was good. I unfortunately was at my full-time job, so I couldn't be there today. But I did watch the press conferences, wrote about it, read the transcripts, watched Twitter meltdown, basically.
I mean, of course. Good news. We do have the YouTube comments tonight. Those are up. That's working. So hopefully folks can bring their thoughts as well. Obviously, they can still bring them over on Twitter as well, but I want to let people know about that. I'm glad you were able to catch them because I have basically been away from my phone most of the day. So we're going to get to go through those. But before we do, I have a couple things. Did you see our friend Dom's tweet yesterday?
I wasn't really on Twitter yesterday.
Apparently, the Youngstown Phantoms have listed Bruins prospect Vasek Blanar on their roster.
Okay.
There's been nothing about it.
Okay.
And the last time I checked, which was earlier today, he is still listed on their 25-26 roster. No idea what that means because he's currently playing overseas. At least last we knew.
Right.
But shout out to Dom for that little tidbit because I mean, let's face it, he had to go and look at the roster to see that.
Right.
So that's detail that only Dom provides. Dom, we love you. Thank you for that detail. And we'll be keeping an eye on that because if you noticed, no one in Bruins media ran with that.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes, though.
Okay.
Otherwise, let's get into the quotes. I mean, you have them all right there, you said, right?
Yeah, I have them pulled up too so that I can read them. So the first thing which came as a shock is David Pastrnak is sidelined to start training camp.
How worried are you?
I'm not worried at all. They said, to quote, David Pastrnak won't skate for the first couple of days. His last training block, he got a little tendonitis, and we as a group just said load management at this point in time is what is the best course of action. He'll be back on the ice. He's on the ice still, but he won't be in full practice until next week. That's the only surprise that John Sweeney said he had. Everybody's fully running. And so he basically said that Pastrnak is going to be on the ice with John McClain and then the rest of the group next week, which leads us to believe if he's on the ice skating, it's got to be upper body. And if it's a training block, it could be a little bit. I mean, we're speculating, but he's going to be on the ice, just not fully participating in the first few days of practice. I'm okay with that.
This tells me that if this was pretty much any time during the season, he'd either A, be playing through it. If it was playoffs, he's absolutely playing through it.
Right.
But because it's day one of camp, they're like, you're David Pastrnak. We don't care.
Right.
Like, I don't need to watch you skate top line minutes in preseason to know you're our top line right wing. You're good.
Right.
So
well, and what he also said was with Pastrnak being sidelined for a couple of days, it gives the competitive environment that much more of a jump because now, even though they know that David Pastrnak's going to get the top line minutes, you know what I mean? He's the best offensive player that you have. It lights a little bit of a fire for other players to show what they can do alongside Elias Lindholm, Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, Casey Middlestat, you know what I mean? So it spreads it out a little bit and it gives Marco Sturm a little bit more time to see some of those younger prospects that are pushing for a spot on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, not that we're sitting here pounding the drum to put Matthew Poitras on the right wing, but I mean, if he's got a shot next to Elias Lindholm and Morgan Geekie for a little bit and it looks good, he's fighting to make that look good all year.
Right.
I mean, let's face it. putting him on your top line right wing or your second line right wing, because you can have, Zacha and Arvidsson and Pasternak together, like that just changes what you're able to do. Some for the good, some for the bad. Let's see. And as Beamer says, I'd rather have Pasta rest now than have him out during the regular season.
100%.
Yep. That's it.
So let's go through a little bit more housekeeping before we get into the nitty gritty.
Yes.
We all know that Zdeno Chara is being honored next month in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Sweeney did mention today that when Chara came back from Europe, he's met with Marco Sturm. They are looking to dot the I's and cross the T's and make his role official. What that role is, we don't know yet, but it's going to be some sort of like advisor role, whether it's with the coaching staff or the players themselves. But they are definitely talking about making his role official, and we should know what that role is in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that just basically tells us that he was part of things last year, but they didn't have a full definition of what he's going to do. And basically now that it matters because people are back, they're just going to sort it out. Right. I don't have any problem with it. I mean, for all we know, all they did last year was just sign a contract that said he'll be part of the 26, 20 or 25, 26.
Right. I think that they're going to really, especially with the new coach, I think that they didn't want to do anything until they had a coach in place.
Yeah.
Until Sweeney knew if he was staying. I mean, at that point, he was on an expiring contract. So no one knew if Sweeney was going to sign a contract extension. No one knew, what was going to happen. Was Cam Neely going to up and decide that to go in a completely different direction? So I think now that you have the coaching staff in place, 100%, you've got, John Sweeney solidified. You've got your players in the organization. You've made decisions not to bring anyone in on a PTO, which he did touch on. So we'll go over that as well. That now they can say, this is what, because you have to remember, Chara played with Marco.
Yep.
It's not like they've never met before. So Sturm knows what type of leader Chara is. It's just solidifying, is he going to work with the defensive core? Is he going to work on penalty kill? Is he going to help Steve Spott with the power play? There's so many different factors that he could be an advisory in. Is he just going to lend his guidance to Pasternak, Zadorov, McAvoy, the leaders of the team, without an official captain in place? So I think, once we find that out, that we can go forward.
He could even be helping more on the side with Adam McQuaid, who got promoted as well. Correct. Because now that McQuaid is promoted, there's some opening underneath them where responsibilities need to shift. So is there some level that he's going to have? Is he going to have nothing to do with the players, and he's strictly learning the front office back end stuff, right, so he can, be a Don Sweeney's successor, or a Cam Neely's successor kind of thing. Right. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we're not going to know until they announce what his official title is. So I'm not overly worried about it. And then you mentioned that they said that there weren't going to be any PTOs this year. I did see that, and my immediate reaction was, duh. I don't know why people thought this team was going to bring in a handful of PTOs.
Well, because they did last year late too. It's not like Tyler Johnson was on a PTO early. You know what I mean?
Right. But here's the difference, right? Think about what they did last offseason and what they did this offseason.
Right.
All right. This offseason, if you look at the list of guys they brought in, Corrali, Isimont, Blumel, Steves, Janot, they brought in guys to fix the problems that they knew they had, i.e. the locker room. And they brought in a couple guys.
Stop at the locker room.
Okay. The locker room parts that were missing. How's that?
That's better, because when you say the locker room, there's no issue in the locker room. Whenever someone says that,
I get where you're coming from, so let me clarify. The issues that did exist in the locker room, or the lack of what was missing, that kind of thing. All right. So they filled the holes via free agency, is my point.
Right.
Last year they filled a couple larger holes, and they brought in a guy like Tyler Johnson to say, can you supplement where we are short up front? They also brought in Steves, Blumel, and a couple of those guys already on the younger side who would fit what you would want to bring in on a PTO as well. So anybody they would bring in on a PTO, let me ask your question. Who are they beating out?
Well, I think it depends on who you're talking about, because say they brought Matt Grzelcyk back on a PTO. Okay. Matt Grzelcyk had his best year last year. He played his most minutes. He had his best scoring output. He definitely was helping be a leader on that team in Pittsburgh that's in the middle of a retool. Actually, they're in a full-blown rebuild. You know what I mean? So the fact that it took forever for Matt Grzelcyk to land on a PTO kind of blows my mind a little bit, because he was the best free agent defenseman available for like after right at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, so, in terms of leadership, veteran, and what he put for output last year.
His output last year, his offensive production was solid last year. I want to say he had around 40 points. But last year was his outlier season. If you go and look at his other seasons,
I wrote a story about it.
It's not even close. And so the production, sure, that's up because he was a top 2 left side defenseman for that team in Pittsburgh, and that was by design.
Right.
But the problem is if he needs that kind of role to have that kind of scoring success, that's fine. But how is he going to get that in Boston?
But it's not so much of just being like the offensive output isn't really needed in Boston. It's that also veteran presence that if you look at the Bruins blue line now, it's very lopsided.
And it's lopsided on the left.
But it's also lopsided in terms of veteran presence. You know what I mean? Like, you have McAvoy, you have Lindholm, and you kind of have Zadorov. You have Zadorov, who, yes, he's a veteran, but he's not a veteran within the Bruins organization. He's only entering his second year. Matt Grzelcyk knows that locker room. He knows the city. He obviously is from Charlestown. He knows the locker room. He knows the players. He knows Marco Sturm. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different aspects to where, and I'm not saying the Bruins needed, I'm not saying I wanted the Bruins to bring him on a PTO. I'm just saying that if John Sweeney, his comments basically were, they're committing to the players they have in the organization to give them a real look.
Yes.
He needs to stick by those words. His exact quote was, we decided we're not going to bring anyone in at this time. And I think that's a little bit of our determination of some of the plays that we really want to see in some situations. So in other words, he wants to see these young players that have been pushing for the past couple of years that couldn't take someone else's job. He's basically saying, and I quote, hold on, I got to find the second part of the quote because it was a little bit further down. Players that have come in and haven't done that, which is, show that they could do it and performed. We have to reinforce that. You have to be able to support the fact that when a player earns an opportunity to be a Boston Bruin, that we want to reward them on that. Basically, he's saying when a player is playing well and he goes, and I quote, and he goes and he's good enough to play in the league, we can't keep him out. But if you're not, then you may have to buy your time elsewhere. He's basically saying, and he said it somewhere else, and I can't find the quote right now, but he said they need to come in and take someone's job.
Yes.
Like Fabian Lysell needs to come in and he needs to take the job away from Sean Corrali. And I'm not saying position-wise, I'm talking roster spot. because then because if he pushes out Sean Corrali, then you could easily move either Husadinov or Mitten into that third line role. You know what I mean? There's like so many different, but in order for Lysell to make this team, he may have to push out a center to have that other forward move up as well.
Yes. And that's where I'm trying to find, I know you would put out a graphic about the roster, and I want to go through that at some point as well. But that's exactly what where I'm going with it. If you bring, and I'm just going to pick on Grizzly on a PTO, if you bring him in, he has to beat out the guys who are already here, who you know he's not going to beat out. And so in that instance, why bring him in? If like another name that was mentioned was like Evgeny Kuznetsov, right? But why are you bringing him in when you want to see Matthew Poitras in that 3C role, when you want to see Fraser Minton in that 3C role? Hustadinov can have a shot at that 3C role. I wouldn't rule him out either. He is a natural center as well. Then you also have Corrali. Then you have Isimont. Like you have as where was it here? Beamer said they already have 5 or 6 guys competing for a couple spots. Exactly. Why are you bringing more in? Let the people who are here, who have been here, compete for them. That's the whole reason why you brought in the free agents that you did, because they are also guys that you're okay with. Again, we talked about it. Are you going to cry if you lose Sean Corrali over waivers?
No.
Because he's beaten out by 3 other younger guys? No.
I'm not. I don't know if anyone else is.
Would it suck to see him go off to somewhere else? Sure. Like, because it's Sean Corrali, who doesn't love him as a player or as a person. But if he's been beat out by one of these younger kids, you want the kid in the spot. Plain and simple. So Bob added guys they could have PTO'd. They gave real contracts.
Right. So here's the official quote on the competition for the same roles in keeping players within the organization at different levels. Here's the quote. There's, call it 46 spots that a guy gets to play pretty consistently. Injuries you get through camp, and if a player beats another player, one might be exposed to waivers. We just talked about that. Corrali would be one that's exposed to waivers. So there's plenty of opportunity for players to insert themselves and earn a role, but they have to do that. They have to come in and take that job at either level, to tell you the truth. But as I said before, we're not in the business of keeping players ready to help us at the NHL level out of that and not give them the opportunity to have success. That's the quote where he said, we're not in the business of keeping players ready to help us at the NHL level out of basically the NHL. That's the problem that a lot of fans are having, is that quote, because they're looking at Poitras, they're looking at Lysell, they're looking at Mikhailov, they're looking at those players who they believed belonged in the NHL last season or even before that, and they weren't. So a lot of people are saying that Sweeney needs to stay true to his word. But Sweeney is also putting it on Sturm and basically saying Sturm has final say on the roster.
Right.
Okay. So that's the other thing, is that these young kids may actually have more of an opportunity with a coach like Marco Sturm, who is coaching in the AHL the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and didn't you wasn't there a quote that Sturm had about playing the younger kids? Like about being able to because he was in the AHL last year and he coached a lot of the younger kids last year, or something to that effect.
Yep. He said there'll be plenty of opportunities. Nothing will change our defensive identity. There's a reason why the Boston Bruins were elite in the last few decades. Me coming in, I'm not going to change everything, because there's one, I would say, a bad season, which is true. I mean, one bad season doesn't mean you change everything. A few things will do the same. I'll tweak part of it. But then he said, the good thing is we have 6 games. So they have 6 preseason games. So everyone will get the opportunity. He said, where did he say it? I worked with all the young kids the last 3 seasons, so I want them to have success, and I'm going to do everything I can to put them in a good spot. I want them to push some other guys and maybe some of the older veterans too. That's the process, and hopefully, usually there's always one surprise in training camp. The last 7 years I've been coaching at the NHL level, there was always one surprise, and hopefully we'll have at least 1 or 2 coming in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So it sounds like they're all on the same page when it comes to best player, regardless of age and experience, gets the position.
Yeah.
So
it's who's going to help the Boston Bruins now, not 5 years from now. Now, who's going to help the Bruins on the ice this season? If Matthew Poitras earns a spot out of camp, he earns a spot out of camp. If they feel he's in enough shape, put on enough weight, and has learned enough in the AHL last year, and they put him on the roster this year, then he's going to play. You know what I mean? They're not going to shelter him. They're not going to shelter. And basically, you have to say at some point, when do you finally say enough is enough with Lysell?
I think this year, like, even if he has a strong camp, if they still don't feel like he's there, I think that's when they'll start to shop him, because he can't, like, right now, let me ask you this. What's his value? It's not all that much,
right?
Because you're only coming off of what he did last year. It wasn't terrible, but at best, if he has a very good camp, but you're still not going to put him in over, say, Victor Arvidsson, right? And I'm sure Lysell might get a look at some point on the left wing too. Like, just because at this point, if he can't beat someone out on the right and he can't beat someone out on the left and he's not a center, at that point you are putting him down in Providence. Now, the advantage is you can still tell an acquiring team, we liked this, and this about what he brought. He doesn't have any, or he's waiver exempt. And so we felt going with this player was better for our team in the long run because they don't have waiver exemptions. We didn't want to lose that player.
Right.
And so there's still a little bit of a sell job that you can do. And obviously, if he plays well in Providence to start the season, that'll pique some interest. And then from there, then that's where the quote unquote showcase begins, because now you're trying to increase his value to sell him off if he doesn't make the team. He's still a former first-round pick, so teams are still going to look at him and go, we can fix him.
Well, I mean, you have to look at the fact, you have to look at what the Bruins have done for some players. You know what I mean? Like, Morgan Geekie was drowning in Seattle.
Yep.
Pavel Zacha wasn't great in New Jersey.
Oh God, yeah, Zaka's a great example.
I mean, those are two examples right off the top of my head that we can think about. That, so maybe it is that change of scenery that, will help. Maybe being surrounded with younger talent, maybe an Anaheim, maybe a Chicago, younger talent where they can feed off each other. Their speed is all the same. The hockey IQ is pretty much the same. You know what I mean? That maybe that's where he feeds a little bit better instead of, or maybe he thrives here, but with a younger line. Maybe he thrives with Poitras and Mitten, or maybe he thrives, you know what I mean? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he needs that youth around him instead of those older players. Maybe he just was stifled by, playing with a Charlie Coyle, or, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that's part of it.
And there's also the factor, like, I know Bruins fans will point to Sweeney's past and Bruins historical events, if you will. And Tyler Seguin is one that they'll look at and be like, oh, they never should have moved on from him. But the Tyler Seguin success that you've seen in Dallas is not what you would have gotten necessarily in Boston, because he matured as a person because of that trade. And so, again, I'm not trying to sit here and say Fabien Lysell is a problem in the locker room or he's immature or whatever, but any of those types of issues that you come on as a player, or that you might have as a player, they can get shocked the hell out of you real quick once you're traded and you realize I don't have as much of a shot at this as I thought I did.
Well, I think part of it too is that you can't really compare Tyler Seguin's success to blaming that on the Bruins organization, when a kid who had all of the talent that he had and squandered it because he decided to drink himself, basically, not show up for team meetings, show up hungover for games, morning skates, and stuff like that. I mean, that's how do you mean you can't, that's not something that you go, all right, we'll continue to deal with that and have him, especially the way he completely disappeared in the playoffs.
Right. Now, that being said, I mean, he still had 121 points in 203 games in Boston, so it wasn't like he wasn't successful.
In the regular season, he didn't.
Yeah, no, that's my point. Like, he doesn't have the career if he stays in Boston. He might have still had a lot of success, but it's not the same as what he has to his name right now. Period. That's the point. He matured.
No, and the other thing is, people have to remember, he won a Stanley Cup his rookie year and hasn't done anything since then. Yes, he's done phenomenal in the regular season, but there are also, there's a downside to that. So you want to talk about the core four in Toronto, how phenomenal they play in the regular season and then disappear in the postseason. So I mean, it can be catch-22. Speaking of Toronto, did you see their updated quote on their wall in their training facility?
I think I saw something about it a month and a half or so ago. I don't remember.
Oh no, it was all over today. It was today. Because they had their media availability with a couple of the. Hold on, I gotta find it because it's hilarious.
Because I remember when I first heard about it, I laughed hysterically at it because it was such a bad, like, I can't believe they did that.
It says no grit. Oh, what does it say? Hold on. I have to find it. It says no grit.
Let me see if I can pull it up too.
No grit, no something, and then it says no greatness. What?
Yes.
No grit, no. Oh, what the hell is it? Someone else? Did anyone see
no
it?
No grit, no grind, no greatness.
Right. What?
I found that.
And I get the no grit, no grind has a comma, no greatness. What are you trying to say? Because that's not the message that you think it is.
I agree on that wholeheartedly. I think what they're trying to say, though, is without grit and without grind, you can't become great. That's what they're trying to say.
Right, but that's not how it comes across.
No.
That is so not how it comes across.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. Gotta leave it to Toronto to do that. Jay, it said we're not winning this year either. Yup. And that's a perfect description of the Leafs. Yup. Yeah. As they say, the Dallas Star for the Cowboys is a rating. They're just telling you what they are. So, anyways, were there any other quotes that really stood out to you from this morning's media, or even in the last couple of weeks? Because I know last week with captain's practice, we had Pasternak talk a little bit, McAvoy spoke a little bit. Like,
Marco Sturm talked about Tanner Jeannot and Victor Arvidsson. He said, I was really happy that Don signed them. I was really happy when I saw them last week for the first time, because I know how important they are, not just as a player, but also as a person, as a leader in our locker room. Just starting by Tanner, everyone knows he's going to play hard. He's in shape. He's like a machine. but nobody really knows how important he is in the room. And so that's what I'm really excited about to have him here. Arvidsson, he's a competitor. He's going to fit in well, and I think that's something we needed for this team moving forward because he's going to push. He's not a vocal guy, but guys will see it every day in practice, and you'll see it in games. Sometimes he'll have to calm down a little bit. It's kind of like Zadorov, but that's in a good way. I think these two will definitely help us on and off the ice. So that to me, and Sturm knows them from his days in LA.
Yep, both of them. Yep.
Right. So, but for him to say basically that they're competitors, that they're, that they're not just, they weren't just like Don Sweeney didn't just go kind of like, oh, yeah, we could have signed these guys on a PTO, but I'm going to bring them in. You know what I mean? Like he saw something in Arvidsson and Jeannot that obviously will fit this Bruins team. Right. Those aren't the two that you're going to see the younger guys pushing out of the lineup right now. Possibly further down in the season, but I don't see them getting pushed out before a Sean Corrali, before a John Beecher. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think they have more to offer. No offense to Beecher or Corrali, but I think they have more to offer. One of the things that Sweeney talked about was the shots from the blue paint from Arvidsson. You know what I mean?
They need someone who can shoot.
Right. So those are the two things that I think that people have to. I mean, Bruins fans love to pick apart contracts, like the amount of money and different stuff like that. But before the player even puts on the jersey.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I will go so far as to say though that the Victor Arvidsson move in general was a bullseye. Now, what makes it even better is if he can actually produce the way he has in the past. But as far as it's a $4 million contract, if the season's not going the way that you want it to here, but the player's playing well, he will be okay with being traded. He's already moving around. So I'm not worried about the no movement clause. Worst case scenario, you have him for an entire season.
Right.
Fine. Whatever. It's 1 year, $4 million, which is very reasonable for what he could potentially bring for you. And it didn't cost you much to get him.
Right.
And it's only one season.
Right.
If it was 2 seasons, I'd be a little bit more worried. But you acquired him in the offseason, so he's had plenty of time to come to the city and get settled. It's not like you're doing this in a shot in the dark and saying, well, we got him for 3 months just to see if maybe he can help push us over the edge to make the playoffs. And then you have to extend him. If it works, he can be extended because of his age. He is still young enough that he can extend for 3 or 4 years if you need him to.
Right.
Or want him to.
But I think it also depends on what these young players do.
Yep.
And whether or not.
And
if some of these younger players make the roster and they're on a fourth or third, and that was one of the things that Sweeney brought up today, was that people forget Brad Marchand. He started on the fourth line and earned his minutes and became what he was. So who's to say that there isn't a player that ends up on the fourth line that earns his minutes and moves up? Maybe it is Elisel. Maybe he starts on that fourth line just to get the reps in the NHL and move his way up. Is that the ideal situation for Fabian Lysell? Absolutely not. But stranger things have happened, right?
The message, the underlying message is if you're not getting the position that you think you deserve because of what you think you are, there are other ways to make the team. Take Fabian Lysell as an example. He is more of a prototypical second line right wing. That's just what the kind of game he plays is. However, he can make himself known and make this roster as a fourth line right wing if he plays the right way even though he may think his spot is blocked on the right wing 2 spot. If he makes it in a 4th line role, he can work his way up throughout the season because he's on the roster.
Right. And Marco Sturm is going to be one that's going to move people around. It's not going to be as much as like Montgomery used to do it. But, and then speaking of, so someone asked, let me find it.
Real quick, where's my cursor here? I want to pull up Beamer's comment here. He says, part of the reason why I want Patra as the 2C is because he's a skilled puck distributor, and I think pairing him with a volume shooter like Arvidsson would be a good pairing. I don't disagree, but Patra also doesn't have the track record as a 2C that, say, Pavel Zacha has. And Pavel Zacha has been a good puck distributor before as well, and also has his own shot that's really good. So he's more of a dual threat in that 2C role. So having Patra fight for that 2C role and have to earn it over Pavel Zacha is not a bad thing, because that means Patra will be a better 2C because of it if he wins that role.
Right. And the other thing is, too, is, again, to quote Don Sweeney on his expectations for Casey Middlestat, it probably starts with confidence. Coming in now, knowing the players and what his role is, rather than just joining a team that was in the opposite direction of the team he was leaving.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to remember that, too. He came from a team that was headed to the playoffs. He came from a team that was headed to the playoffs to a team that was, starting a retool. I think it'll be a very good year for Casey. He had a good offseason. He's ready to go. He knows that production is part of why we acquired him, and being able to be creative and drive offense for us. He knows it, he wants it, and is looking forward to the opportunity. He could be another one where he started off slow because he was only here for 3 months, not even 3 months. You know what I mean? And now he's built a little bit of chemistry with Zacha last year. You know what I mean? And again, you and I have talked about how Zacha actually sometimes thrived more on the wing than he did in the center, because he felt he didn't have to drive the play. He could just be there. You know what I mean? And in either way, he could slide into the middle. You know what I mean? It's not like he's stuck on the wing. He could slide in the middle. And that's something that Marco Sturm, and now let me go find that quote. What position he sees Pavel Zacha playing. And he said, I don't know. To be honest, I love him as a centerman. Absolutely love him. But he might have to play on the wing. That's something we're going to see. You might ask me anything, but I will give you the same answer all the time. It doesn't mean tomorrow, if you look at the lineup, you're going to see what the line is. I guarantee you that's not the lineup we're going to have game 1. I guarantee we're not going to go probably game 1 of preseason. So there will be some changes because I want to see it. Like, he wants to see where each player is going to thrive and help this team. He goes, there are some changes because I want to see it. I can look all summer long at clips, but I've got to stand behind the bench. I've got to see it in practice, and I've got to feel it. And I can tell you right away, when I see Zacha, for example, when he plays wing or centerman, I'll see it right away. I can tell you what's best, not just for him, but for us as a team and as a line, is where he's going to get the best opportunity.
Yeah, that tells me that he's seen enough of him, and he still just genuinely doesn't know. And that's going to come down to his chemistry with his line mates. Is he better with certain players? Right. He might and that's an example where he might center a line with, Arvidsson and Casey Middlestat, but then the next day you're going to see him on the left wing with Patra in the middle and Arvidsson on the right, because he wants to see how that chemistry works. I think Pavel Zacha has also proven he can be one of those guys who can move up and down the lineup and be kind of that Swiss Army knife player.
Correct.
Basically, as long as he's not playing him on the right wing, he will have some sort of success. Right. It's just, and let's not forget, Marco Sturm knows what to look for in a successful center.
And that was something that he said too. I forget where he said it, but he said basically, like, he loves scoring goals. Like he goes, I was a forward, I love scoring goals. So it's not like he doesn't love the offensive part of it, but he understands that the identity of the Bruins is not just necessarily offensive output. You know what I mean? The identity of the Bruins is hard to play against, the strength down the middle, defense, and goaltending, right? They've always had strong strength down the middle.
Yep.
So down the middle, and we've talked about it, that the Bruins are built from the back end out. They're built from goaltending to defense to then, their forwards. And again, it's the centermen that not necessarily drive just the offense, but they drive everything about that team.
Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is that he's willing to try, because I can't wait for the meltdown. So he's going to throw a line out there and Twitter's going to absolutely melt down. What the fuck is he thinking? And how is he our coach? And it's going to happen. Twitter's going to be it already is a dumpster fire, but it's going to be a raft engulfed in gasoline in the middle of the ocean, and it's going to be burning. And then all of a sudden, after like 4 shifts, people are going to be like, never mind, this line is awesome.
Can you pull up Bob's comment, please?
Yes, I found my cursor. Those last couple games with Zacha, Middlestead, and Lysell, they looked pretty solid together.
I agree. I think it kind of like how Lindholm, Pasternak, and Geeky formed that chemistry towards the end of the season. Down the stretch, Middlestead we saw a little bit more of what Middlestead had to offer.
I think so, yeah. And that also, I think, goes to show too, like, because Zacha is that Swiss Army knife type player, he's also not committing him to a line. And I think, and we still do it too. Admittedly, I do it plenty. We still look at it in terms of center 1, center 2, center 3, center 4, right wing 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on and so forth. They look at it in terms of whose line is it and what is that line's role. Obviously, the minutes are going to dictate a little bit in what matchups they get as well. That's why we kind of default to that language. However, if we can, it wouldn't be the third line. It would be the Zacha line. It would be the Middlestead line.
Well, I think that back in the day, and when I mean back in the day, was when Bergeron and Krejci, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was 1A and 1B. They weren't, there was no first line, second line, because if you want to look at it that way, Krejci was the first line, Bergeron was the second line. I mean, if you really look at it.
That's my point. Everyone always said Bergeron was the 1C. It's like, well, if you really look at it, Bergeron
he really wasn't.
Is the 2C.
He really wasn't. But even so, like, I think that people need to get away from, like you said, line 1, the top line, the second line. Other than, who your fourth, what your fourth line is going to be eventually. We may not know the fourth line right now, but we know their role. And their role in the fourth line is going to most likely consist of some form of Beecher, Tanagino, Kastelik, Corrali. Some of those bottom 6 forwards are going to end up between lines 3 and 4.
Right. And then real quick, Bob also adds, I also feel that putting Patra with Geeky and Pasta makes your team so much deeper. If you can have Janot, Lindholm, and Arvidsson on a third line, I don't really like that as that quote unquote third line. And real quick, Tyler adds, if the Zacha line is getting the third highest minutes, it's the third line. Counter to that, Tyler, if Zacha is getting the third most minutes as a center, then he is your 3C. But if the wingers are getting significantly lower time, because Zacha's also playing shifts with the second line, then it throws the numbers off. It's not just about time on ice, because also you're going to have guys on your fourth line who probably kill penalties, but they're certainly not getting power play time. And so if they're killing penalties and you take 7 penalties in the game, they're going to have a lot more time on ice than David Pastrnak. Does that mean Pastrnak's all of a sudden your 4 right wing because he got 12 minutes and you were killing penalties for half the game? Let's be real. No, that's not what it means. So you can't just go off of time on ice. It's about the role that that player is playing when they're on the ice, and it's about the role that the line is playing. And someone like Zacha can get more ice time because of his versatility. I'm not saying you double shift him in back-to-back shifts the way you would, say, David Pastrnak, but you could roll him out with 2 guys 1 shift as a center and then 2 other guys 3 shifts later as a left wing. He is that versatile for you.
I don't know why everyone really wants to crap all over Elias Lindholm and move him down to the 3rd line after his performance down the stretch and in Worlds this past year. Like,
is this the comment that you're referring to with Elias?
Well, not even just from Bob, but from everyone. Like, everyone they're set on the first half of the season when he had a back injury.
Yeah. He just, for context, for those not watching, he says, I prefer someone better on 3 left wing with Lindholm and Arvidsson. Just not sure at this point who that might be. But if you're looking at Elias Lindholm with anybody other than Pastrnak and Geekie, then you don't have the same center that he was. But again, if you watched him at Worlds, if you watched him even in the Four Nations tournament, he's not your prototypical 3C. If he's healthy, he is perfectly fine as your 1C right now.
Or 2C. If you get what you think you're going to get out of Potter or Minton or even Hagens down the line, you know what I mean? I'm not seeing this year. But if they slide into that top line with David Pastrnak and who knows how long Morgan Geekie is going to be here, then that tells a different story. But if you have the Elias Lindholm that played in 4 Nations down the stretch and at Worlds this past off season, then I want him next to Pastrnak. I want him feeding the puck to David Pastrnak. I want him feeding the puck to Morgan Geekie. I want him taking face-offs in the offensive zone with Pastrnak and Geekie on his wings.
Yeah. I'm trying to pull up something here real quick as well. Bob asks, do you think Potter has a higher offensive ceiling than Lindholm?
He hasn't shown me that he does. Not yet.
I would also say it depends on who his line mates are. I think you can get just as much of an offensive output from him if he's with David Pastrnak. But then again, look at what we saw in an increase in Morgan Geekie's performance. So if you have a line that includes Pastrnak and Poitras, and they're told, don't worry about your 2-way game, go out and just be an offensive force, you'll get a hell of a lot more production than you would if you said you have to play a solid 2-way game. Because let's be real, if Patrice Bergeron didn't focus on his 2-way game the way he did, he could have had a hell of a lot more points than he got.
Right. Well, the other thing is that having an offensive ceiling for this team this season, because that's the problem. We're looking at this season. We're not looking at the future. We're looking at this season. Because in the future, that's what this comment, Hagens is the one to take that 1C spot.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Problem is you don't have Hagens right now.
Correct.
So
I'm not convinced that Fraser Minton's not above Matthew Potter right now.
Yeah, I mean they've played together before, so one of them can kick over to the wing if they need to. Maybe they play better together, and that's what you find.
Maybe that your 2C is Fraser Minton with Potter on his wing and Lysell on the other wing. And then your 3C is Middlestat with Zacha and Arvidsson. Maybe that's what happens. We don't know. We don't know until they hit camp and show that what they did last year in the AHL can be translated into the NHL.
Right. And then real quick, because Tyler also said the 5-on-5 minutes can usually tell the story back to, first line, second line, and so on and so forth. But so last year, if you're looking at ice time, let me just see if I can find strictly 5-on-5. Here we go. Your ice time when it comes to 5-on-5 play, your center depth would have been Zacha, Mittelstadt, Geekie, Lindholm, based on ice time. And we all know that that's not how it went. And by the way, Lindholm had less ice time than Mittelstadt and played one more game than him. So it doesn't always tell the story, Tyler. It's how they're used. Also, you're more likely to have a defensive center go out and take a face-off in the defensive zone and then quickly shift him out if your team gets the puck, or a defensive forward in general, if your team gets the puck and starts going the other direction. There's so much more to it than just looking at a box score going, they got this much 5-on-5 ice time. That's how the line is played.
Well, and I think the other thing is we have to keep in mind too that last year the season wasn't really indicative of what's going to happen this year, right?
And
we know how bad last year was.
Right. Bob adds 0 chance this management group allows 3 rookies to play on a line together. You know what? I don't think it's 0. I think it's 0.
I disagree. I disagree because I think Marco Sturm has more of a voice, and especially since the fact that he was coaching in the AHL the last 3 seasons, 2 as head coach, 1 as an assistant coach, that I think that Don Sweeney basically said today too, is that he's got to give, he's like, I'm going to give Marco advice, but Marco has the final say when it comes to time on ice, when it comes to lines, when it comes to lineup, everything. And he said, and I quote, and this was the funniest thing. He goes, I may have a I told you so moment, but it could go the other way as well, where he could tell Marco Sturm, basically, I want this, this, and this. And Marco's like, nope, I'm seeing this. I want to see this. And then one of them's going to have the I told you so. Right. And he even talked about in terms of goaltending that he can tell Marco and goalie Bob, basically, Jeremy Swayman needs to start this game. History says this, this, and this. He has the numbers. And goalie Bob could be like, listen, no, I think Korpisalo needs to start this game, or Michael DiPietro, whoever's going to start this game. And again, it's up to goalie Bob and Marco Sturm to make that decision. He said if he's going to tell the coach what to do, he might as well just go and be on the bench. And he said, that's not my role. So I think that there's a lot of pushback that Cam Neely and Don Sweeney run this team more on the actual lineup. And that may have been the case with Joe Sacco.
May have been the case with Jim Montgomery a little bit too.
And I don't think it's going to be the case with Marco Sturm. I think they've learned that they have to let, especially a coach because they should have let Cassidy do it. And I think that they were a little too involved with Cassidy as well, which is why, maybe things didn't work out as well for Cassidy here in Boston. It definitely, you started to see it a little bit at the end of Julian's tenure. Definitely saw it with Montgomery, especially at the beginning of last season. Definitely saw it with Sacco. But I think that I'm going to take Don Sweeney at his word because he sounded different today.
I also want to ask you this too, especially because they brought in specifically Spot for the opening spot. At the end of last season, we saw a coach lose his job because he did what he was supposed to do. He pulled Jake Ottinger.
Right.
in a playoff game where Jake Ottinger, while not the
I don't think he
problem,
lost his
wasn't.
job because he pulled
No,
Ottinger. I think he
but
lost his job because of his comments.
exactly. And so basically, I think what they saw in that whole situation was, at the end of the day, if we are right and he is wrong, we can still fire him.
Correct.
And so if we let our coach, we can still fire him if he's wrong.
Correct.
And I think they're both, Neely and Sweeney alike, are a little bit more emboldened to take that risk, because now that they've gotten through a little bit of a rocky part where they're fixing what they need to fix, their top priority has been, we need to get younger players in here. We need to get younger talent in here. And they've started that process. Don Sweeney has done his job. He's brought in younger guys, whether it's Blumel, whether it's Steves, James Hagens. Yes, there was a little bit of luck there, but he still did his job. All right. And now we're looking at guys like Bonar and Simpson and Will Moore, Patra. Like, you're starting to see some of the fruits of the long-term development that Don Sweeney has been on. And so his job is proving to be better than people have thought overall, because now you're also seeing guys like Gallagher get in the mix and show what he's able to do. So Don Sweeney's been able to kind of have a few of his own "I told you so" moments with his bosses by saying, look, I told you Gallagher would be a good player, and now he's in Providence, and you'll get to see him in Providence. And last year, look what he did. Look at what Don Zlach-Mellis did.
Right.
He's having a little bit more of that. They brought in the coach together, and so now there's a little bit more confidence, I think, overall in the front office to say, let's give our coach that same confidence. Okay. If he screws it up, he'll screw it up, but we can move on.
Let me read the quote that he had about Marco Sturm as the new coach. He said, you got to give him latitude to how he wants to run training camp. I'm a sounding board in a lot of those things. I've had good fortune of working with highly successful coaches. They all ran training camp a little bit different. He has his own ideas of how he wants to do things, and then we just discuss, and he bounces it off his coaches and what's best. The collaboration is an everyday event. He knows that he has the final say in terms of roster, who's playing with who, and he controls ice time. There's no tweaking the system side of things. They talked a little bit about, just a little bit of a tweak, but the system is basically the system.
Yeah, they're going to play the way the Bruins have been playing for a while.
We may talk in terms of what might work and what doesn't, but he has final say in what's going to happen on the ice. I've gotten a lot of good advice along the way, but one of them was, you go down and start coaching, you might as well coach. That's not my job. That's not my role. His role will be to give me feedback on who plays well, who meshes together, whether or not we have holes in our lineup. It's the same way you would talk to Ryan Mougenel in terms of who's called up and who can fill this role. From top to bottom, left to right, we have to be cohesive. We will not always agree on things, but when we leave the room, he has the final decision in terms of player personnel and the systems and how we're going to play. That is the first time Don Sweeney has been that clear and concise about the coach's role with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. And real quick, Beamer also asks, how much of an impact do you think the feedback received during the coaching search process will impact the approach to drafting, developing, and promoting prospects moving forward?
I think a lot of it has to do with the level of coaching that Marco Sturm has had. He's coached overseas. He's coached in the AHL. He's coached as an assistant in the NHL. So I think he has experience with all different types of players, not just NHL players, not just, you know what I mean? So I think, especially because, of what he's done in the LA organization between the Kings and the Reign, I think that he's going to be almost the perfect coach. Like, I was really hoping when they were on this coaching search that they were going to bring someone in that had AHL experience because of the youth that has to be implemented into this roster. Unless they go out and sign David, Connor McDavid or, Mitch Marner, unless they get some of those.
As Ian said, let's get Kaprizov and McDavid to play with Pasta in 26-27. That was a while ago, Ian. I did see it.
But unless you get players like that, you have to have a coach who can work with those young players. And I think also the fact that Marco Sturm not only has worked with young players, but the fact he knows as a player what it's like to deal with Boston media, Boston fan base, everything about it, that he has that little nuance that no other coach in recent history had in Boston.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I would not be surprised if at some point during the season he says something that sends Bruins media and fans into the biggest whirlwind spin of what is he doing? But he's taking attention off of the players and putting it on himself because he knows that there might be a time where that has to happen, even if he has to say something out that comes off as outrageously stupid.
Right.
I just wouldn't be surprised. I just think it's how much of an impact. I don't think there's a way to really quantify it. I think it was an experience. I mean, we've talked a lot about Don Sweeney in the past. Don Sweeney learns from his mistakes overall. He doesn't tend to make the same ones over and over and over and over again.
I'm pro Don Sweeney.
I know.
I'm one of the only people in Bruins media. I'm not talking the fan base because I know there are a few of us, but I'm one of the only ones that is pro Don Sweeney because I think he is strategic in everything that he does.
He thinks it all through.
He does. He doesn't, and he always gets the best that's available. It's not like he went, all right, we need secondary scoring. Who's available? And at what price? So they went and got Victor Arvidsson. Is he the perfect winger for the Boston Bruins? Probably not, but he was the perfect winger available this offseason at the price that wasn't, you know what I mean? So
right.
There's, and for the style of play that this roster is going to have to play because of that lack of secondary scoring, that lack of offensive output, to be able to go in those greasy areas. And he takes how many shots per game? 3
or 4.
Right. At least. Right.
Yeah.
So he may not have been, a David Pastrnak on the other teams that he's played for. But again, Morgan Geekie wasn't Morgan Geekie that we see today in Seattle. Pavel Zacha wasn't Pavel Zacha that we see today in New Jersey. Elias Lindholm is going to revert back to the Elias Lindholm early in his career in Calgary because he has proven when he has wingers, he can be the offensive, he can put out the offensive output. And if he's healthy, he can do that.
Yeah, and you talk about the price. It's a 2027 fifth round pick.
Right.
If you need a pick in the 5th round in 2027, you have 2 years to acquire it back.
Right.
Like
5th round.
As they say, what did I say?
You said 5th round. I was just reiterating 5th round.
If you, as they say, that's a 2027 problem.
Right.
If your biggest problem in 2027 is you need a 5th round draft pick, you're doing pretty damn good.
Right.
So the risk, super minimal. By the way, you're hoping to get a player as good as what Victor Arvidsson is right now at his worst, what we've seen from him in the 5th round.
Right.
That's a success for that draft pick. So, there's nothing wrong with that. for that cost. And if you look at some of the other moves he's made, but my point is he learns from his mistakes. So, he might make the mistake a couple times because it's a little bit different. And because of that, that's where, the drafting and the developing and stuff like that. I think there will be tweaks, but I don't think that was the big thing. Let's see. Beamer adds, I generally think he's been a good GM. I think he's been mostly in a position where he had to add roster players to try and win while the window was open, and that comes at the expense of the farm. 100%. But what part of the farm? The high-end talent part of the farm. That's why you don't have 5 James Hagans in your system. That's why San Jose has a bunch of high-end prospects.
Right.
Would you rather be San Jose right now, or would you rather be Boston right now? Which one would you rather be over the last 10 years?
Boston.
Right. It's just, I think Greer's doing a great job out in San Jose. I'm not picking on Mike Grier, but Mike Grier is why they have all the potential that they have right now.
And they're going to and they're going to eventually turn it around, just like Florida eventually turned it around. Like, it's going to go in cycles. Like we talked about this last week, that while Buffalo is not there yet, they're projecting in the right direction. The problem is with Buffalo is getting through the rest of the Atlantic Division.
Yeah. And at least with San Jose, like, at some point you're going to see someone else's good card flip over, and that's where they're looking to jump. Same thing. Anaheim's looking for the same thing, but Anaheim is also getting a little bit more sick of waiting for their young talent. And that's why they went out and they got guys like Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba and Radko Gudas. They're bringing guys in to basically say, help these young guys be more ready sooner.
Well, and that's what Chicago's doing. Chicago's doing that.
They're trying.
They're trying to weave that veteran with their youth. You know what I mean? And so one thing is, like we talked last week, when we talked about the captain's practice, Jeremy Swayman and Nikita Zadorov especially were like, they have chips on their shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
Because one, how the season went. Two, how everyone is basically saying they're going to be a shit team again this year, basically, right?
Yeah.
So someone asked, I think it was Jim McBride, asked Marco Sturm today how he plans on weaving, because where he's new in Boston with 6 preseason games, how he's going to weave some of the veteran players into the preseason games. Because if you were Montgomery last year, right? It was his 3rd season. So he knows what to expect from veteran players. So he's not going to play David Pastrnak in 4 out of the 6 preseason games, right? He's probably only going to play him in 1, maybe 2. So they were asking him, how Marco Sturm seems to it. And I love this quote. He said, we'll see day by day. There's nothing really set yet. But what I'm hearing from the guys is they want to play. That's a good thing. I can feel that they're a little pissed, even from last year. I know it's going to be a lot. So basically, like, the team is telling him, we're not repeating what we did last year. You know what I mean? Like, the team is basically saying, we're done. We are not going to do what we did last year. The players are not going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, and a lot of the players have the talent to ensure and back that up.
Yeah.
And they have the talent to work together to do that.
Right. The Bruins have always, if you go back in history, right? How many 40, 50, 60 goal scorers are there in history?
Not very many.
Right. So, but they had a lot of 20 goal scorers, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you, that was the argument I used to have with my dad all the time, because I'd be like, I'd rather have 5 20 goal scorers than 1 50 goal scorer.
Right. Because if that one player goes on a cold streak, you've got nothing.
Right. Like, God forbid David Pastrnak got injured last year.
Oh God. You're right. If you even this year, if he goes down, you are right there with the bottom dwellers.
Right, because you're losing 90% of your offense. Because
Right.
it's not even just his goal scoring. Look how many assists he had last year.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you look at it that way, if you lose David Pastrnak, that's why you need to have Morgan Geekie score 20 to 30 goals again. That's why you need Arvidsson to score 20 goals. That's why you need someone else to step up, whether it's Pavel Zacha or, Matthew Potter or Fabian Lysell. They have to put out 15 to 20 goals. They have to have that because you're going to get the point production out of Pastrnak, Geekie, and Lindholm. I have no doubt in my mind that Elias Lindholm is going to continue what he did last year in the last 15 games of the season. I'm not talking the beginning of the season. I'm talking the last 15 games of the season where he was putting out almost a point per game, right? So you have him, you have Geekie. And even if Marco Sturm says, you know what, I want to try something and I want to put Zacha back with Pastrnak and put Lindholm down with Middlestat and Arvidsson. I don't care. I don't care.
Still a better mental place.
Right. I don't care as long as they're producing. And they're producing to where the Bruins projected them to produce. And that was something last year that Sweeney said numerous times. The players they expected the output from, they weren't getting the output from. The only two players they got the output from were Pastrnak and Geekie. They didn't get the output from Marchand. He was injured half the season, and he got off to a very slow start. Charlie Coyle didn't give out the output that he had the previous 2 years. Trent Frederick wasn't putting out the output that he was given.
Elias Lindholm wasn't giving what they thought, but it was injury.
Right, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact, again, he was injured, number one, and number two, because he was injured, he couldn't form that chemistry. Yeah. And so he got moved down to the third line.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny, though, because you just mentioned something that the two people who performed to their level of expectation were Pastrnak and Geekie, which means what Geekie did last year for them was not a surprise for the Bruins.
Correct.
Surprised the hell out of some of the fans because they didn't know.
Again, he got off to a slow start, too. He got off to a very slow start to the point where, if you remember, Brett called him out on Twitter.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? And so, but I think that the Bruins saw it when they brought him over from Seattle. The Bruins saw it back then.
They knew they had this in him. It was just a matter of how can we untap it and get it out of him. And
both seasons, he had career years.
Yep. But the fact that they were expecting this out of him tells me that they knew what they were looking at, what they were seeing, and it just took a little longer. Imagine if you had last year 2 years ago.
Right.
First of all, they'd have been scraping to extend him a hell of a lot sooner. Like, now at least there's a little bit of a win on that contract because you can sit there and go, well, you only did it once. We had you for 3 years. So we don't have to give you $7 million. We can do $5 million, which is where he ended up. So there's a little bit of a win on that contract in that regard.
Right.
But in general, they know what they're doing. I think it's hilarious when fans immediately go, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's like, well, they're the ones that are doing this for their job. If they didn't know what the hell they were doing at all, they wouldn't be here.
Well, there are some people, too, that are complaining that Adam McQuaid was not the right person to promote.
No.
There's more to player development than just offense.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they picked Adam McQuaid for that promotion kind of drives home the point of where this team finds its success. Because guess what team finds its success from the offense back? Sure as hell ain't the Bruins.
No.
And I'll give you a hint. They haven't won in a really long time. Toronto finds their success from the forward group backwards. And
no greatness.
they're doing their damnedest to try to reverse that right now with Berube, and they're trying to rely on Anthony Stolarz to be that anchor. I'm sorry, but Swayman or Stolarz? I'll take Swayman. Bob adds, if Pastrnak misses an extended period of time due to injury, we'll all be wearing miserable for McKenna t-shirts to the games.
If he misses an extended period of time, then Don Sweeney has to try and fill that role. He has to take advantage of LTIR and find someone to fill that role.
Well, the LTIR rules do change this year, so they would only get half of that space if he misses the entire season and the playoffs. If he's done for the entire season and the playoffs, they would get half of his, 11.5, 11.25. They'd get half of that back to work with in addition on their cap. Right. So you'd still be struggling, but it's gonna change everything. Right. For one. So that's a problem that you address when it gets there. Bob also asked, wasn't he healthy, scratched a few games to start the year?
If you're talking about Geeky, yes.
He was, yeah. He was down on the third line. He worked his way up. So
well, and he was a healthy scratch too.
Yeah.
But that was also Montgomery.
It's also funny.
Montgomery also benched Pastrnak in a game.
Yeah, which I think that was his way of being like, flare gun, I want out. But it's funny how one little thing will have such a ripple effect, because so many Bruins fans have been panicked for how long about if you put him on waivers, you're going to lose Michael DiPietro to Edmonton for nothing. How often have you heard that?
I don't care.
But how often have you heard it?
Too many times.
Okay, if you're Edmonton, are you going to claim Michael DiPietro off of waivers or Connor Ingram a starter in this league? If you're going to claim someone off of waivers.
Correct. Yeah. I mean.
So just like that, out of nowhere, there's no more worry about DiPietro getting selected off of waivers.
Well, it's just like they're worried about if you're not going to, if someone pushes David Pastrnak out of the lineup, then I don't want Pastrnak here anyways, right?
Right. Yeah.
If someone pushes Morgan Geeky out of the lineup, 100% that they want to put him down in Providence, then he shouldn't be here anyways. If they're going to, you know what I mean? So who's going to get pushed out of the lineup? The players that you don't care.
Right.
I mean, you care because you don't want to see players leave, but not to the point where it's catastrophic to your lineup. Those aren't the players. I was hoping when they put Wahlstrom down last year and he was put on waivers that someone was going to claim him. They didn't. You know what I mean? But I don't care. I like Sean Kuraly. He's fine. But if I would rather see Husadinov, Mitten, Lysell, Patra, I would rather see those players. Boomel, I would rather see those players. And if the Bruins lose Sean Kuraly on waivers, so be it.
Right, but the key is you're losing Sean Kuraly because Hustadinov beat him out for the job.
Correct.
Which means Hustadinov has a higher ceiling, which means as a team, you're better off because of it.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, if you're putting Sean Kuraly in $1.85 million on waivers and he gets through and you have $350,000 on your cap that you have to worry about because you waived Sean Kuraly, that's a problem that you sit there and go, I'll take that problem, because that means Hustadinov stood out enough to beat Sean Kuraly. That means Matthew Patra beat Sean Kuraly out for the job. And you know what? Someone like Sean Kuraly, if he gets through waivers, it could be a number of different things. Maybe the team that wanted to claim him can't take on the full 1.8. So now you're sitting there going, look, we can ensure you get him. We will trade him to you and retain so that we have less of a cap hit overall to worry about, as do you. But in order to make it work, we need a third round pick instead of a fifth.
Right.
That's where negotiating comes into play.
Right.
And that's where, instead of going, okay, we want Corrali, we're willing to give you Beecher instead because we need to free up $300,000. And Beecher, you make a deal with a different team who wants fourth line help, and you just take a 6th-round pick for Beecher because you had to make your money work. Like,
yeah,
that's a good problem.
Unless DiPietro is playing like Linus Ullmark, I don't care.
And he so far has only played like Linus Ullmark in Providence.
Correct. But not even 100% like Linus Ullmark.
No. I expect more from Korpisalo than what we've seen. And I think some of that too is if you go back and look, he tends to struggle in a first year. Like, the only time he didn't struggle his first year with a team was when he first arrived in LA. And by the way, who was the coaching staff in LA when they had Korpisalo? Marco Sturm.
Right.
There's a little bit of knowledge about that player as well. Let's not let that fly under the radar either. So there's a lot of things that can go more right than they have in the past. I'm just pulling this up real quick because this is the graphic that went out for the forwards, the defensemen, and the goaltenders who are coming to camp. Any names that surprised you? Let's start there.
No. Not in forwards, because I already can like picture like there's quite a few on there that I'm like, all right, they're going to Providence. They're going to Providence.
Yeah, I think Abade and Bancroft, Brown. Is it a bait or is it a body?
I don't even know. Jeffrey VL.
Brett Harrison, he's going down to Providence. I like that they're bringing him to this camp though, because Patrick he did Brown. Have a good prospects challenge.
Yeah. I mean, but like I don't see Riley Duran making a push this season.
Right.
I don't see Riley Tufting making a push this season.
VL, I don't think is going to make a push.
No, like the ones that are going to make a push this season, and Beecher's like teetering. Like he could either start in Providence or he could be in Boston. But I think the ones that are going to get that push, that are going to push, that the Bruins are really going to look at are Husadinov, Lachmelis, Lysell, Merkulov, Minton. Those are the younger guys, and Matthew Poitras. Those are the younger guys that are going to give the really good looks at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if each preseason game we saw mostly young kids with a few veterans mixed in, so we can see how some of the kids look with certain veterans. Like, I would not be surprised if in a preseason game we saw Matthew Poitras and or Don Lachmelis get time with David Pastrnak.
Right.
I just wouldn't be surprised.
It depends on when Pasternak's ready for preseason action as well.
Yes.
But I wouldn't even be surprised if we didn't see some of the combinations that we saw in Providence last year in the preseason games. You know what I mean? To get a better look at power play units, to get a better look at what they can offer offensively and defensively as a unit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so those are the things right there. On defense, I was a little bit more shocked, I should say, that Jackson Edward.
I think it's to just get him more pro experience, like experience with the pros.
I don't see him making a push.
I don't see him making a push, but what I would do is I would say stick with, like, staple yourself to Nikita Zadorov. Staple yourself to Tanner Jeannot. Those are the two guys that we want you to get as close to possible with and learn from in camp, because those are the guys that offer the same or similar physical style, and they're the ones that can sit there and be like, this is where you need to calm your hot head and not cross-check someone to the neck and take a stupid penalty. Like, it's okay to play the way that you play, but you got to do it smarter, and we're going to show you how. You know, even Andrew Peeke is someone that he could get stapled to and and play with. It also depends on what side they want him on. He's a left shot, but he's played more on the right. So, I think some of it too is to get him used to the back and forth, pair him with a right shot and pair him with a left shot, see where he sticks, where he might stick long term if he sticks around. I wouldn't be surprised though real quick on the forwards, as you were talking, a line I thought of. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Zacha, Lachmelis, and Arvidsson together.
Okay. I wouldn't mind giving that a look.
I
think we focus so much on Lysell, Patra, and Minton that we overlook what Lachmelis has done in the short time that he transitioned from college to professional hockey.
He also has a lot of international experience.
Correct.
And so with that, I mean, he was one of the first 6 names that Latvia released for the Olympics. Like that right there tells you just what his country thinks of him as a hockey player. Like, I know it's not the same as if he was one of the first 6 for Canada, but still.
Right. Well, I mean, let's look at it for what it is. If you're looking at the first 6, even at the USA level, you know what I mean? Like Charlie McAvoy's on that list.
Right.
Jeremy Swayman was on that list. So you have to look at it that way. You have to look at it, what countries are putting out their lists and who's on them. Hi, Dom.
Welcome in, Dom. Hopefully you're doing well. But yeah, basically Latvia is sitting here going, at 21 years old, Don Lachmelis is one of the best players we have in our entire country. And we're not afraid to say that.
Right.
He's 21 years old, people. Like, let's not forget that. So and if people have been paying attention to Dom, shout out Dom. Dom and I have been talking about Lachmelis for 3 years. So it just, Dom's always ahead of the game on that stuff. So as far as the roster, though, like you said, I'm not really surprised on anything. I will be very interested to see what groups they try together, what line combinations, and quite frankly, what the fallout is, if that makes sense. Because I can picture a couple of these young kids making the lineup. It's just which ones, where, and which veterans get bumped out.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, again, I don't necessarily think that you have to say, well, Matthew Potter has to be on the first or second line. No, he doesn't.
No.
If he's good enough to be in the NHL, then he should be in the NHL, but that does not guarantee him first or second line minutes.
Right. What we know for sure is they're going to look at this list of players and they're going to go, we need somewhere along, we need 2 goaltenders, 6 defensemen, and 12 forwards. We need that. Beyond that, who are the next 3 best players that will help our team?
Right.
And so they're going to look at, I think there are some on here. I mean, let's be honest. You really think David Pasternak's not making the roster? No, he's fine.
No, I mean, there's some givens. Pasternak's a given. Geeky's a given. I think Pavelzak is a given. I think that
Geeky's a given. I don't know if you said him.
Yeah, I think Elias Lindholm is a given.
Arvidsson.
I think that Mark Kastelik is a given. Arvidsson is a given. And then outside of that, even Jeannot could be a healthy scratch. He's not a given.
Right. Jeannot, if someone comes in and offers similar off the ice type of leadership, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if it's leadership or whatever, if someone can bring what he brings to the table off the ice and on the ice, I don't think they're going to hesitate to sit there and go, he could be a 13th forward for us.
Well, and I don't think, because off the ice, he's still around the team, so it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if he's the healthy scratch. He's still in the locker room during intermissions. He's still on the ice during practices. he's still available all the time to be a leader to those young players.
Yeah, I think he has a roster spot.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But he's not necessarily going to be, he could be a healthy scratch. He doesn't necessarily have to be that. He may not be like 100% in the lineup every single night, even easy one.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? So, and then if we look at defense, there's 3 guarantees. Only 3.
McAvoy, Lindholm, Zadorov.
Right. Those are your guarantees.
I think we're all pretty confident that Mason Lohrei is going to be in there as well.
You don't know.
That's why I said we're confident.
I want to believe that he is, but if he has the season that he had last year, then Marco Sturm may say he needs to go back down to Providence.
Yeah. And then Jokiharju, I think, is another one. Again, we're confident that he's likely going to do
just
it.
Like I'm confident that Andrew Peeke is going to be in the lineup game 1. You know what I mean? I'm saying that my top 6 are Lohrei, McAvoy, Lindholm, Zadorov, Peeke, and Jokiharju, but that doesn't mean that they're going to play every single night.
Right.
Because we don't know. Maybe Victor Soderstrom comes in and pushes out Andrew Peeke.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if we see Lindholm and Soderstrom together in the preseason and see what that looks like, because there's a lot of similarities there in style, and they have the nationality. Like there's a lot of reasons why it could work. It also could be the ugliest defensive pair we've seen.
Right.
So like, I'm just saying, I would throw it out there in preseason to see what it looks like. Beamer asked the question, would Lach Mellis be served better spending a full season in Providence, or can he realistically make the jump? Lach Mellis has a ceiling that allows him to make the jump. I think he's better served with a full season in Providence. However, we don't know what he looks like in this lineup or with some of these other players right now. He looked really good with certain guys in Providence last year, but that doesn't mean he's going to look like that this year, because he just made the jump into the American Hockey League last year. And so if you watch when Dom and I were doing the show, and when he's been on before, he always talks about the adrenaline bump. And that adrenaline bump works and counts for players making the jump to the NCAA, or from the NCAA to the American Hockey League, from the NCAA to the NHL, from the AHL to the NHL. Every time you get that call up to the next level, you're going to have that little jolt. It's going to be a nice little confidence boost, and you're going to ride high for a little bit. Do we really think he's going to average 2 points a game all season long in Providence if he spends the entire season there? No, it's going to come back down to earth. And if you watched the postseason in Providence, you saw that start to happen. So there's got to be a little bit of adjustment there. I think he ends up in Providence as a realistic probability, but he's capable. Again, we just talked about what he's done on the world stage. I don't know if you have anything to.
I just think like you have to look at certain players at different. I mean, look at McAvoy is the perfect example. He came in and didn't look back.
Yeah, there was also an opportunity for him to do it.
Right. So maybe Lach Mellis has that opportunity with the way the team is this year. Maybe this is Lysal's opportunity. Maybe this is Patra's opportunity. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, this lineup is such a crapshoot. It's whoever basically says, I'm pinning my ears back and you are not sending me back to Providence this year.
That's why I really want to watch Matthew Patra this preseason, because he has done it twice, where he's come out like a cannon fire, fire on his ass, And he's done it. He's made this team twice out of camp.
Right. But the problem last year versus the year before, because the year before he got injured. So that's kind of like.
But he made the team and forced their hand to keep him out of juniors.
Well, yes, but that was also a different circumstance. They either had to send him back to juniors or keep him in the NHL. They couldn't send him to the AHL.
Right.
Because if they had the opportunity to send him to the AHL, he wasn't starting the season in Boston.
I agree. But here's the thing. He did what he had to do to make them make that decision.
Right. No, I understand that. But last year, he didn't. He came in camp. He had put on weight. He came in camp, and then he floundered. And they had to send him to Providence.
100%.
Okay?
100%.
So we still don't know if he can maintain what he did in those 2 short sample sizes at the beginning of the NHL season through a whole entire NHL season. We don't know yet.
No, we don't know that. But what we do know is what he looked like in Providence at the season's end.
But Providence and Boston is Boston.
I know. But if he can be that player, he now knows what he needs to do. The question is, can he do it for the entire season?
And can he push someone out of the lineup?
Exactly.
Does he take a job? Is he the one to take a job from someone else? Does he say enough is enough? You're not sending me back down. I'm proving it to you. I'm taking this job.
He can do it. My only question is whose job is he taking? Because I think that also plays a part in whether or not he actually does it or not.
And it depends on where Marco Sturm thinks that he fits best in this lineup, on the wing or down the middle.
Exactly. So yeah, there was something else I was going to add. I don't even remember anymore. Because I just noticed what time it is. Yeah, we've been going at it for a little over an hour and a half now. So that's why I lost my train of thought. But yeah,
well, the good news is when we meet next week, we not only will have a few days of on ice activities, but the first preseason game.
Yes. Wow. I can't believe the preseason is already here. For how much we've been sitting here drudging through the summer, I can't believe that the first preseason game is so close.
I know. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
A little bit. Not going to lie, a little bit. And next week we'll have a couple, hopefully at least one major announcement. Working on a few things around here. So we got some stuff coming. I will say Kenny has something going on tomorrow, so we are not doing the next shift pod tomorrow. We're going to skip a week here. Obviously, as part of it, there's also, not much going on in the lower leagues. So that's why we're getting away with it.
We actually have 2 preseason games.
2 preseason games between now and our next
Sunday
show.
And Tuesday. They play Sunday and Tuesday. So we've got 3 days of on ice activities, then the first preseason game, then another practice, and then yeah.
Can I real quick? I know we want to wrap it up a little bit here, but the new goalie Zazacek looked awesome in the Prospects Challenge. His movements were smooth, side to side. He was solid, and his quick glove, he challenged shooters very nicely. Overall, very impressive first game in the U.S. And I really don't think the Bruins fans have anything to worry about if they do lose DiPietro for nothing.
Right.
Because they do have him in their system, and it would just be for this 1 year because they're going to go after some NCAA guys real hard because I don't think Svedback's going to get a contract from the Bruins. If they let Reed Dick walk, they're going to let Svedback walk at this point. Svedback has this season with Providence College to change that outlook. I don't think he will, especially with how much better this NCAA season is going to be.
Right.
And I'm sorry for you, but I would worry about my Northeastern team if I were you. they're just not going to be the same. Sorry. I just giving you an honest answer. That's all. It's going to be a good NCAA season to watch, though. Lots of excitement there. You got any other thoughts as we round out an hour and 45 here?
Just that I really think that this team the expectations of this team are really low.
For fans
and for some of the media as well, not just not for themselves. They have higher expectations. I think and we've talked about this many, many times, given the health of the defense alone, having McAvoy and Lindholm back on the back end, and then up front, having a healthy Elias Lindholm to help push forward that offense. David Pastrnak is going to be David Pastrnak. As long as Morgan Geekie replicates his season, you know what I mean? And you keep pushing forward. I think that this team is going to be pushing, like I said, at minimum a wild card, if not the top 3 in the division. I mean, you don't know what to expect from Toronto.
Yeah. Toronto's a big wild card there. I think a lot of people are higher on them than they should be. There's a lot more turnover in that roster. I know Mitch Marner's the big name, but that's also a lot of offense.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, too, is that you have to keep in mind that Florida announced today that Matthew Tkachuk is out till at least December.
And Thomas Nosek is out, too.
Right.
He's out for a long period of time as well.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting. Dom, if you are still in the chat, throw up a note real quick, because I have something that I've been looking at in the memorandum of understanding. It's a cap question. I think Dom would have the answer, so I'm hoping he's in the comments. But I think I know where the new loophole is going to be when it comes to the salary cap. Because the memorandum of understanding, I want to get it right. And I actually have it right here because I've been looking at it quite a bit. It is the playoff cap that people are referring to is based off of, it's the playoff playing roster average club salary. So we know that the full cap hit of a player is going to take effect regardless of what was their cap hit during the season. So like bonuses, signing bonuses, all those types of things are going to be included. And if you trade with salary retained, even if you have whatever the salary percentage is that you took on, that's your full cap hit in the playoffs towards that daily. Make sense?
Yeah. Are you asking Dom?
So, well, I'm also kind of putting it out there in general. There is a specific part that's mentioned where it says the amount included for a player with performance bonuses and or games played bonuses shall be the sum of the player's paragraph 1 NHL salary, signing roster, and reporting bonuses only. And then in parentheses, it says, i.e. performance and or games played bonuses shall not be included. So if you sign someone with performance bonuses, that money is not counted towards their salary cap in the playoffs based on what that says. Unless you think something I just said doesn't add up.
It sounds right to me, but I would have to.
So my other question to that is, those bonuses, if they're going to put you in salary cap overage, get carried over to the following season. But because it's a performance bonus, it would affect them in the regular season, but not in the postseason.
Okay. I think you're I think you're right.
We'll talk more about it after you and I. But if Dom is in the chat, that's directed towards him. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to start to see some fuckery.
Right. Well, and I think even like Marchand said today that the no sales no income tax was a huge factor with him staying in Florida.
Oh yeah,
because
we already knew that,
right? But he also said that it was the term.
Mm-hmm. He wanted a dollar amount, and they gave him the dollar amount, and they just said we want to do it over this term. So, and Beamer, that is the nail that I was putting in the board. So offer a lower base salary with higher and easier to achieve performance bonuses.
But the problem is the league has to approve that, and they're not going to approve it on every player.
No, because only certain players qualify for them. It's the 35 and over contract.
Right.
That's where, but if you look, Colorado has this type of contract in place for Brett Burns.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is, I want to say.
So doesn't Marchand has that contract.
But his aren't performance bonuses. His is signing bonuses.
Oh, so I thought he also had performance bonuses.
His is all in signing bonuses. So his goes against his AAV, and so it will count against him in the playoffs. Okay. Brett Burns has a $1 million AAV and then has $3 million in if he plays 10 games, and then another $1 million bonus if he averages 23 minutes of ice time for 70 games. That one's the one that makes it way more complicated. But assuming he hits both of those bonuses, he could be worth a total of $5 million or $4 million as a player. But because they're performance bonuses, they won't count against him in his cap amount in the postseason. If they carry over to next season, they'll only affect Colorado's cap during the regular season because they were performance bonuses. So either they're going to say next year, because it was deferred money and it's quote unquote dead money now, it will affect them in the cap and it'll be part of that whole group, like a buyout, if you will, because that's going to go against the daily lineup as well. And they pool it with that, in which case now they have $4 million against their daily lineup next year if you're Colorado, or they count it for this year, but it explicitly says that it doesn't. So it's not going to happen that way.
Well, because I remember that Bergeron and Krejci had rollover money.
Exactly. So you can roll the bonus over and basically have it disappear in your playoff cap.
Right.
Based on how I'm reading this. Let me make that clear. So I'm trying to get it clarified.
Right. Well, I think that they were trying to adjust the playoff cap because of the fact of how many teams were playing with LTIR in the regular season because there was no playoff. Basically, there was no cap in the playoff.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that they're trying to limit that fuckery, basically, is how you put it.
I know what they're trying to do, but as Beamer said, if you can just sign a 35, and that's why it's weird because it's only going to qualify for 35-plus-year-old players. So, like,
but I think it depends on the player, and I think it depends on the performance bonuses. Like, they're not going to approve, like, Brad Marchand only has to score 10 goals. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to,
Why not? Obviously, the way they would have to do it is they would have to scale the bonuses. Is not
because
Brett Burns just has to play 10 games and he gets $3 million.
In the postseason or the regular season?
In the regular season, the performance bonus of his contract is 10 games played, $3 million bonus.
How old is he now?
He's 40.
That's why.
But the precedent isn't based on the age because we've seen that for other players.
But the other thing is, look at Colorado. Do they really need him?
He's going to be on their right side for sure. Because if you look at the rest of their defense, absolutely they need him.
Okay.
He's going to play a big part on that blue line. Now, is he going to be the reason why they win the Stanley Cup? No, it's probably going to be Makar and McKinnon and getting goaltending from Mackenzie Blackwood and Gabriel Landeskog becoming Gabriel Landeskog that we all remember. Like, though there are going to be plenty of other factors, but Brett Burns is going to play a part. You know, like, did Brad Marchand play the biggest factor in their repeat for Florida? No, but he was an important part. So that's where it's going to come to be a problem. But hopefully that's a problem the Bruins have to worry about down the road.
Right.
And if someone's going to figure it out, it's going to be Evan Gold and Don Sweeney.
Right.
So,
by the way, if you haven't seen the clip of Gabriel Landeskog answering a media's person's phone, go find it. It's hilarious.
I saw that it happened. I haven't seen the clip because as soon as I saw the thing, my Twitter refreshed and it went away. So
go find me because I reposted it. It was like probably the best thing I saw on the internet today.
That's great. I heard that it happened though, and I was like, oh, I got to watch that. So with that though, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Like I said, we got some big stuff coming. My last question for you, do you have any additional thoughts? Do you have any thoughts to share on the Boston Fleet?
No, they're silent. They're radio silent right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't. I haven't seen a schedule. I haven't seen anything. It's radio silence right now in the PWHL. They're just kind of recapping and reposting and stuff like that. Like there's nothing. Like there's no news yet as to when.
So they're in their August.
Yeah, they don't. I haven't seen dates for when training camps start, and I'm not seeing anything yet. So I've got nothing yet on the Fleet.
Beamer adds in real quick. Some contender will trade for Sid and extend him with one of those contracts. That's the type of thing I'm talking about.
He's never leaving Pittsburgh.
I don't think so, but Sid probably not the best example. But
no, because he's gonna do what Patrice Bergeron did in Boston. He's not leaving Pittsburgh.
I don't think so. I really don't.
Some contender is going to sign someone, but it's not going to be Sidney Crosby.
Exactly. No, that's the thing. So anyways, with that.